Welcome back to the channel. So today we're revisiting brisket. You know, I did this brisket video a little while back and a lot of you guys have really enjoyed that video, and I got a lot of feedback from that video of some success stories of first time cooking brisket and it came out awesome, and all of that. And then I got some stories of people that tried to follow it and it didn't quite work out as well for you. So today we're going to do another brisket cook, okay? And it's not going to be a straight out tutorial per se, but this is going to be how you guys get to watch the Dawgfatha and see how I make my brisket. Now I'll put some commentary in there, and the first side of this whole video is going to be where all the information is, because let's face it, once you get the brisket on the pit, at that point it's just fire management. And if you're using a pellet smoker, you just got to keep pellets in it, and that's about it. So today we're revisiting brisket for beginners on the LonestarGrillz Black Label 1200. All right, let's go. Alright guys, so hey, we're gonna get started with this brisket. Now today I've got a prime grade brisket. If it's me and I'm making from my backyard, I'm gonna go with prime or I'm gonna go with choice all day long. Nothing wrong with using select, but it just doesn't yield the type of brisket that I'm looking for. We've got us a prime grade brisket here, and I've got this one from my man Scott over at Happy to Meet You. He shipped this one out to me, and this is about a 10-pound prime brisket. And so whenever I get ready to do my briskets, like I said, I'll go for a prime grade all day. A 10-pounder is a relatively small brisket. Try to keep my brisket size to under 14 pounds. 15 pounds is really pushing it for me. And the reason why is because I don't want to have to cook brisket forever. You know, sometimes those bigger briskets take a really long time. Sometimes that's all you can get, and I understand that. And so a lot of times whenever, that's just all they have at the store that day, I might go ahead and get them, but I'll do a really aggressive trim job on that brisket because I know I'm going to use the trimmings for other things. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing cut out of the package. And like I said, I'm showing you guys how I do my brisket. Feel free to do it any kind of way you want to, but because of the questions and everything, this is why I'm going to do it this way. So first thing that I do is I'll flip it over to the meat side, and I find that kernel of fat there because that's where I'm going to make my cut. So I'm not worried about cutting into any meat. This is just going to be right into the fat. So we're just going to cut just like this. We've now got this package open. And before we get into the trim, guys, a little tip here is make sure your brisket is cold. You know, the colder your brisket is, the easier it's going to be to trim. So okay, so now we've got our brisket out of the package and we got it onto our cutting surface. And the first thing that I do when I'm going to do my brisket is I take a look at this overall brisket and I develop a game plan for it. I look at the fat cap there, and I look at the thickness there of the flat. I look at all of this. I look at these pieces that are on the end like this that'll have to be trimmed off. I look at the overall uniformity of the brisket, and this one doesn't look too bad. So we're gonna flip it back over, and I've got the meat side up. Now again, guys, you don't have to throw away your trimmings. You can save those trimmings. You can use them to make beef tallow. I'll cover that in a video later. If you don't know what beef tallow is and you're curious about it, comment down below and I'll make sure I get that video filmed for you. But also the meat trimmings, you can use the meat trimmings and make, carne asada, or put them in the burgers, put them in the sausage, whatever you wanna do with it. So don't think that because you have a big brisket and you trim it down to maybe half or a third of the size that you're gonna lose all that content. You're absolutely not. So let's go ahead and get this trimmed. And the first thing I'm gonna do is just get this little end off of here, because look at all that fat there, and that was just right there on the end. So we got that out of there. First thing that I'm gonna do is I see that we've got this good kernel of fat there across the top, and I'm gonna try to get underneath here and get this trimmed out. And the key is to just take your time. You don't try to rush it. Just let the knife do the work for you. I'm just following this fat seam all the way down this brisket here, and hopefully you guys can kind of see that. And there you go. So we just got this whole chunk of fat here just trimmed right off of this. and we're looking pretty good so far. And we're still gonna go over here, and I'm gonna try and get this. Now when you have this, like, you know, fat layer here that's really thin on this side, you don't absolutely have to trim it off, but we're gonna try and trim it off here. And we're gonna move on, and we're gonna adjust this fat kernel that you see right here, okay? And the way that I pretty much do this is I don't want to gouge this out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my knife here, and I'm gonna run at an angle to where the knife is kind of going down towards the table, and we're gonna try to get as much of this fat off of here as we can here through this cut. And the idea here is that we want to try and keep this brisket pretty aerodynamic, because we can always trim out what we don't want to eat there when we finish up. Got a little bit here that I just want to get off out of the way. Now what I'm looking at here is, if you can kind of see that, you got some discoloration here on your brisket, and that's really not, you know, bad meat or anything like that. That's just from the process of when they harvest this brisket from the carcass. And so we're gonna go ahead and same thing, we're just gonna kind of angle down, and we're gonna cut right along there. All right, so we're gonna flip this guy over. I see this little end sticking up here. Hopefully you guys can see that. We know that's gonna burn, so we're gonna take that off. So good tip here, again, when you're trying to get to this fat that's kind of in the middle of the brisket, get your fingers underneath that brisket and raise it up, and that'll get you to the edges that you need there, so you can kind of get to this fat. Alright guys, so hey, we got this brisket trimmed up, and we're now ready to put our rub together so that we can get this brisket seasoned so we can go on the pit. Alright, so we got 2 tablespoons of salt. Now, if you follow my channel, you know how I do my rub. It's a 4-to-1. So if we've got 2 tablespoons of salt in here, we're gonna go with, how many? Anybody? Anybody? We're gonna go with 8 tablespoons of pepper, guys. So we're gonna put 8 tablespoons of pepper in here. Something that you guys have all asked about, you're like, hey, well, what about the smoke ring and this and that and the other? So let me give you a little tip here. This is what I do. I'll use celery salt, guys. I'll add celery salt to my rub, and that tends to help out with the ring. And so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add just under a tablespoon of celery seed here. So we now have celery seed in here to help us with the ring. Alright guys, so that's what our rub is looking like. We're going to go ahead and get this applied. Now I'm not going to use a binder on this brisket today. We've been out here long enough that it's tacky now. And so that's going to help this rub bind to this brisket perfectly fine. So we're not going to have to use any oils, W sauce, mustard, none of that. We're just going to apply our rub, alright? So let's get this rub on. Alright guys, so just like that, we just got this brisket all trimmed up. We got it all rubbed up here with our Central Texas style rub, and now it's going to be time for us to get this on the pit. Now today we are using our LonestarGrillz Black Label 1200, and I am using B&B hickory pellets. Alright, so we're going to be running this pit at 275 degrees for the first part of this cook. And we're basically going to keep this thing smoking until we get to the color we're looking for. I'm not worried about any temperatures. I'm not going to use any temperature gauges to figure out. I don't care about any temperatures or anything, okay? I'm just looking for the right color for me. Now, color is a subjective thing. Whatever color is good for you, go for it. But when we get to the color that we're looking for, I'll let you know. All right, so I'll see you guys at the grill, all right? Alright gang, so hey, we are at our Louisiana grills. We've got this already heated up here and we're ready to get our brisket on. So let's pop it open and let's get it on. Now one thing to remember, when we put this on here, we're actually going to go with the fat cap down because we're on a pellet smoker. We've got this deflector plate underneath it that's going to be radiating heat, and we want to protect that meat. So the fat cap is always going to go between your meat and your heat. Alright guys, so hey, so we just got that brisket on, and now, wait, what? Oh, I forgot about the smoke tube? No, I didn't forget about the smoke tube. I know a lot of you guys had questions about the smoke tube and how you get that thing lit and keep it lit. So I actually did put the smoke tube in. I went ahead and filled it up with my hickory pellets, and I went and put my blowtorch on it and lit it up. Now the key is that you have to leave it vertical, and I leave it that way for about 10 minutes or so, and then once it's burned down and now it's just giving off a good great smoke, that's when I go ahead and put it into the pit. So I did not forget about the smoke tube, you guys. I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in depth so that you guys can figure that out, take that, use it, you know, whatever. So anyway, so let's move on. All right, so we got our brisket onto our grill right now. Again, we're rolling at 275 degrees, and right now we're just going to be going until we get to the color that we want. Now that might take 2 hours, that might take 3 hours, that might take 4 hours, it might take 6 hours. Whatever the color is that you want is what we're going for. So I'm going to let this keep rolling, and I'll bring you guys back here probably in a few hours when I'm gonna check it to make sure that my rub is set and see if I need to spritz it or, you know, that type of thing. But you guys sit back, relax, hey, enjoy your cold beverage while you watch this video, and I'm smoking the brisket the Dawgfatha way. Alright, so see you in a bit. Alright guys, so hey, we're about 5 hours into this, and again, we're gonna go ahead and get this brisket off. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna wrap this. And the first thing I do with my butcher paper is I spray it down with my spritz. Today I'm just using water for my spritz. You can use whatever you want to use. Now the reason I'm spraying down the paper like this is because it makes it more pliable. It makes it a lot easier to fold over when I'm wrapping up this brisket. So let's go ahead and get this brisket off the pit and let's get it wrapped up in this paper. Alright, so now we can get this put right back on the pit. Alright guys, so just like that, we just got our brisket all wrapped. Now again, we did this at the 5 hour mark, and we're going to let it go until it gets tender the way I want it. Now the last thing that I'm going to do, we've been smoking along at 275 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and bump that temperature up to 300 degrees and finish this cook off, alright? So 5 hours with this 10-pound brisket got us to the color that we want. Now we're wrapped and we're going to tenderize it off, alright? So I'll bring you guys back when it's time to get this brisket off the pit. Alright guys, so we're at the 9 hour mark on this cook, and it's time for us to check our tenderness. So we're going to crack it open and take a look. So as I usually do, I take a probe and we're just going to go right into the side of this brisket, and I'm just kind of feeling around. And it feels pretty good, guys. And I know you guys want to know what the temperature is, so we're looking at about 202 degrees in the flat and about 208 degrees in the point. So our brisket is done. We're going to pull this brisket off and let it rest, guys. Alright guys, so let's do a recap of what we did with this cook today. So today we're revisiting our briskets for beginners cook, and we got us about a 10-pound prime brisket from my man Scott over at Happy to Meet You. We went ahead and trimmed this brisket up and got it ready to go onto our pit. Now we put together another Central Texas style rub, basically salt and pepper, and we added some celery seed just to try and enhance that smoke ring. So we got it onto our LonestarGrillz Black Label 1200, and we smoked it at 275 degrees with B&B hickory flavored pellets. So we smoked this brisket until we got it to the color that we were looking for, at which point we then wrapped it up with our butcher paper. Now keep in mind, through the first part of this cook, it was about 5 hours until we got to the color that we were looking for, and after about the third hour, so the last 2 hours, we went ahead and spritzed that brisket with just plain water just to make sure we kept it moist and not dry out on us. So we got this brisket wrapped up into our butcher paper, we returned it to the pit, and we kicked our temperature up to 300 degrees. At that point, we kept smoking it away or cooking it away until it got to the tenderness that we were looking for. The entire cook took us roughly about 9 hours to complete. We pulled the brisket off of our pit and we rested it on a tray on our table until we got the temperature down to about 150 degrees. At that point, it's rested and it's ready for us to slice it. So let's get over here and let's go taste this brisket, all right? Let's go. All right, guys, so as you can see, we've got our brisket on our board here. It came off looking really good. I'm really digging the color on this thing. So we're gonna go ahead and get cut into it. I'm gonna cut right down the middle there. Look at there, guys. Man, this brisket is looking just right. Look at that. So all right, guys. Man, this brisket is just come out looking just phenomenal. And it's got a really good pronounced solid ring on it, man. All right, so let's cut this. And let's give this a taste, man. Look at that. Man, I hope you guys can actually pick that out. It's nice and juicy. And let's give it a taste here. This is that Central Texas flavor we're dealing with here. This right here is really good, guys. So yeah, I would tell you guys, if you're really having trouble with your brisket, I would really urge you to just try and follow this you know, as closely as you can, because this absolutely does work, guys. So hey, I appreciate you guys for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw here on this video, as well as what you see on this channel, you might want to check out what I've got listed right here, as well as hit that subscribe button right there in the corner right. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.